Geoff, we're just going to quickly change formats here. Back to Test cricket with Tim Southee. Now, Tim Southee's announced his retirement unless they make the World Test Championship final. I don't mind that either, by the way. That's just pragmatic.
Sure.
He's saying that I'm retiring unless we beat England 3-0 and we're in a World Test Championship spot. Then, of course, I'm going to make myself available for one last dash in England in the middle of next year. But, what a mainstay. We were very critical of Southee earlier this year, and I think rightly so. But he's done a lot right over a very long stretch of time, 385 Test wickets, a puncher's chance of getting to 400. A lot would need to go right in a 3-test series, but still he could. Second to Hadley, and owing to the way that, I don't think New Zealand will be playing much Test cricket in 5 years' time. I don't think anyone will be able to reach Southee again. Certainly not with the way that the energy, certainly not with the noises you're getting out of NZC these days. I just don't think they're going to be hosting more than 2 Test series, with the exception of England and maybe New Zealand, and thus they'll be in the mix with everybody else. But anyway, my point is that 385 Test wickets is a mighty effort. You add to that 221 in one day, as 164 in T20s, where he's been regularly the number one ranked bowler in the world. All the big moments New Zealand have enjoyed in the last 10 years, longer, he's been there for them. Made his debut in 2008. He'll get the big send-off when England get there for their 3 Test matches, which begin on the 30th of November, so 10 days from now. And Geoff, we received an email during the week about Southee's retirement, which felt more you than me, because you've always been slightly obsessed with his batting as well.
Yes, this is Michael Roberts, who says, thanks as always for your wonderful podcast. Thank you, Michael. For cricket nerds like us, focus should swing to Southee's incredible batting record, which, if set, will surely never be broken. By my searching, no player has played as many tests without bettering their top score, least of all coming from their debut, as in have gone for such a long streak without topping a previous high score. The closest I can find is Jacques Rudolph with a double 100 on debut, but he only played 40-odd tests. The idea that this record would stay looked indisputable given his form with the bat in the last 5 years, but a crucial 70 in the one-run victory against England 2 years ago and a useful 50 against India hint that the record could be under pressure. Personally, I'm not sure if I'd rather see him end the drought with a century at his home ground in Hamilton or prefer to see this incredible statistic stand. It could be the case. So he made 77 not out on Test debut. He's never gone past that. He's played 104 tests and batted 150 times. I think the stat I like almost more than that is not out on Test debut. He's only been not out 9 other times in that 150 innings. So he always gets out because he's always playing. He's always mowing at something. He's always trying to slap something over mid-wicket. And all of those sixes, he hit 7 or 8 sixes, I think, in that first Test match across a couple of innings. And then that's been declining too since. But he's so far up on the 6th list with 90. He's got 90-something now. 90.
I've got it written down. He's got 93.
93. There we go.
Yeah.
So he's 4 away from catching Jacques Kallis, 5 away from catching Chris Gale, 7 away from Gilchrist. He won't catch McCullum or Stokes, but across 3 tests, he could get any of those first 3 ahead of him.
Because he could have got McCullum. Because McCullum only, I think from memory, McCullum he got his 100th 6 to pull level with Gilchrist in his 100th Test, which was at Wellington. Am I right in saying?
Yes. Yep.
And then his 101st Test might have been his final Test, which was the one he played at Christchurch, where, of course, he hit a number of sixes in the cricker century.
He hits 7. Yeah, so he gets to 100. 7, right? He gets to 100, and then he hits 7 more at Christchurch.
Yeah. So, really, I mean, you look at it in those terms, he's 14 away from getting into the top couple. Anyway, that won't be happening. But Tim Southee, we will celebrate properly in that series. They've named their squad New Zealand. Now, interesting stuff here. So Nathan Smith's in there for the first time. Pretty good story, this. He decided to become a full-time county bowler this year at Worcester and did a great job. He kept them up. We talked about the wonderful Worcestershire story and how resilient they were as a club. But, he was a week-in, week-out guy across the 3 formats. Ended the season really well with 8 wickets against Durham and had a really nice couple of innings against Surrey that I saw him bowl in firsthand at the Oval. So, I think he's 26, Nathan Smith. He would declare as an all-rounder. So, good to see the next generation of New Zealand cricket coming through. Kane Williamson's back in that squad. No Ajaz Patel, though. How stiff is he? Whatever it is, 13 wickets in his previous Test match, dropped for the home series. It's not his first
It's the
experience.
same thing that happened last time. He took 10 innings last time, and they wouldn't pick him.
Yeah. And then in terms of the other members of the New Zealand squad, well, they're on a high under Tom Latham, having just won 3-0. And the mathematics are what the mathematics are. They win 3-0 against England. I'm not saying it's impossible for them to miss, but, they win 3-0, they make it, I reckon. It's like the South Africa thing. They win their last 4 on the trot, they make it. Because you're asking so much of Australia. I think for Australia to be in an impregnable position, they need to win 5 of 7. And India, it's like they've got to win 4 or 5 to sew it up. They could get there with 3 or 5, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like there are the teams with the easiest run in a way are the ones with the fewest tests to play. That is New Zealand 3 at home. And who would doubt that against England, who do look a bit rattled? I mean, the whole idea of Bazball 2.0 in 2024, I know they won 5 of 6 at home. They had that record-breaking test to begin their series at Pakistan, but it just feels like of the two teams, despite New Zealand being kind of nowhere for a couple of years there, that New Zealand are the form line I'd want to be following, not England. So we are hoping to do daily shows from New Zealand. It's not completely signed off as yet, but I mean, if you want to sponsor it, call me or text me or, send me a message on Blue Sky. I'm on there. I mean, I don't intend to post from there, but I am on there.
You're protesting too much. You'll be all over it in like 2 years' time.
Did you see that thing the other day? There's a media outlet. It's like, hey, let's everyone have a really nice day. And he posted a photo of a kitten that was from one of the media houses. I'm like, give me a fucking spell. No. At least have something. Give me something. But no,
just block. But blocking is super easy. Very liberal. You just block early, block often. That's always been my approach.
So the Pakistan, the New Zealand England series has so much riding on it. I really want to do the daily. So get in touch if you want to have your brand all over that. Cam Ponsonby is going to do it with us. He's going to have Coney with him. Like these are going to be good shows, really good shows. So get in touch. It'll be into the England market. Perfect time of the morning. I think they drop at like 6 a.m. or something. So the best time for a pod to drop is an overnight test match when it drops at first thing. The downloads always spike on that. So if this is you, call me. I'll be waiting to process your
call me.
One more break here, Geoff. Break. Yeah, we'll take one more. We're going to come back with some of the Mr. Sheffield Shield and some other stuff in Australia as well, and an idea which has come in on the email. Final Word Cricket Podcast, Adam Collins, Geoff Lemon. Geoff, tell us why we should get a NordVPN. You are. Tell us why we should. Now, you spend more of your life away from Australia than in Australia. Tell us why it should be Nord. Tell us how you do it.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you why it is Nord, because they're who I signed up with before they signed up with me. Before they sponsored this show, I was paying them. That's how it worked, because, A, they were very economical. They offered a very affordable rate, and you can do like a long-term deal. You can do a 24-month thing, and then the per month is low. Then if you do it through us, you can get that even cheaper. They are the best at what they do. They've got the fastest VPN network in the world almost all the time. They've got 6,000 plus servers in 111 countries from memory. I think it's 111. It's certainly triple figures. That's like as many countries as there are on the associate cricket list. There are, I'm going to have a stab and say 196 countries in the world, something along those lines, depending how you count them. Stay tuned to the UN to see where that's going. But they pay attention. They give you breadth. They give you coverage. And what that means is you can tell a website that you are, in fact, in a different country than the one you are, which can help you get around very annoying, unnecessary restrictions on things like using subscriptions that you have in one country that daftly you're not allowed to use because you're on a week's holiday somewhere, or trying to buy something in one country where they jack up the price by 3 times because they know that they can stiff you because of currency conversions or whatever it is. You can just say, hey, I'm in Azerbaijan, and it so happens that this product is cheap in Azerbaijan if purchased from Azerbaijan and then shipped to where I am. Equality on the internet, that is what we want. That's what we're after. All of those things can come to you, along with remarkable security, because if you have a VPN, it protects your information from being hijacked by other people because they can't see where you are and they can't see what you're sending. It's a necessary tool in the modern world.
So nordvpn.com/TFW. Now, I'm not usually a Strictly watcher. It's more Rachel's domain in our house. Strictly Come Dancing is like an institution on a Saturday and a Sunday night around this time of year in the UK. But, some of it seeps in. I've been watching just enough of it that I feel like I want to know what happens at the end. The other night, by the way, you get reminders sometimes of how different Australia is to the UK, like when you're kind of in the culture. Like the other night, I was watching Strictly and the Pet Shop Boys performing, a song written by Bowie, all the young dudes. That just would not happen on Australian television on a Sunday night. That just would not be a thing that people would find interesting. It was bloody good. But anyway, I will have the ability to tap into what I need to watch in England. I'm trying to think what else I've been watching on BBC recently. You know what? I'm sure that Industry is on a streaming platform in Australia. I finished season 3 just before I jumped on the flight about a week ago or thereabouts. Have you watched Industry yet, Geoff?
No, I haven't. But I did use the Nord to show Fleabag to somebody who really needed to watch it, and it was the only way to access it.
Yeah, it'll all work. Well, you should if you want to watch Industry without streaming it in Australia, Geoff, while you're over here, I recommend doing so from the BBC because it is quite the show. Anyway, that's nordvpn.com/TFW. Our TV reviews will be saved for another podcast at another time. Our Sheffield Shield reviews, however, they get done every single time they play a round. And there was one of those rounds on the weekend, or concluded on the weekend. Victoria back to the top of a very busy table after beating their rivals, West Australia, who they've played in the last 2 finals. At the Juno down in St Kilda by 8 wickets. This was, it looks like it was a bit lively early on. There were different moments where this pitch did give a bit. The Sandgropers were out for 167 on day 1. Bancroft, another fail. So sad the way the Bancroft story has gone in the last few months. Outlegged before wickets. Fergus O'Neill for 12. O'Neill 3 more wickets, 6 in the match. Keeps taking wickets. Fergus O'Neill, you keep hearing that name. I know he's got express pace, but might there be a role for him to play for Australia at some point? Time will tell. Todd Murphy, another timely fourfer. I say timely because there isn't that much more red ball cricket before they'll be picking the squad for Sri Lanka, right? And this wasn't a bowl off with Rockacholi necessarily, but with both of them in the same game, that naturally is where interest went to. Victoria earned a healthy first innings lead, making 373. Harris 47. Tom Rogers, newcomer this season, made 76. And Peter Hanscom 56. Dan Cherny pointed out on social media, on Twitter, that he's made more 50s in first-class cricket this year than anyone in the world, Peter Hanscom. So, again, talking about Sri Lanka, I feel like on both weight of runs and on the basis of what we've seen from him in the subcontinent in the past, that he's got to be a massive show for that. And then Xavier A. Crone made 62 not out. I only note the middle initial because Cricinfo does. He's played a few games the last couple of years. I don't know why they're using the middle initial on Cricinfo, but Xavier A. Crone.
Distinguish him from the other Crones that are getting around. Did he play one of the 3 witches in Macbeth in high school? What he's going up, mate? Is it an Italian name? Acrone. Xavier Acrone. I don't know. They're usually they're a bit more consistent. Usually it's CricBuzz who are absolutely all over the shop with their scorecard. Some people just have a last name. Some people just have a first name. Some people have all of the 7 names on their profile. No one can decide what's going on. The buzz.
Well, when AB de Villiers, I remember AB de Villiers bowling, and CricBuzz has called him AB. Didn't bother with any of the other names. So, as you do. Alan Border having a little trundle, is he?
Yeah.
More of it, I
for the SCG.
He's here, isn't he? I think AB's here this week. Let's see if he's getting down the Barbara Shetts. Have a little bowl, AB. Let's see.
The Joel Curtis bit is interesting. In the wicket keeper for WA, who's been on a ridiculous run in grade cricket, but sort of had to be because. So I know there's the piece of him playing because Inglis isn't playing, but he also had to get past Baxter Holt, who's moved from. One of Jim Maxwell's favourites, who's moved from New South Wales across to WA for this season, and sort of was initially looked like they'd be going with Holt as the keeper, but Joel Curtis made a ton, 119 not out after a couple of low scores in the only previous couple of Shield games that he's had, so that was interesting.
They got to 325, so they were ahead of the game, at least. They gave Victoria something to chase after being 200 and something behind. It included Ashton Agar batting with one hand at the end. He came in, he's got a badly injured shoulder from the game, and so much so that he couldn't hold the bat with his left arm. So that's not good timing for Agar either, because he bowled so well in the previous round. And if they're looking for a left arm spinner for Sri Lanka to complement what they've got, it might be Agar or Kuhnemann, you know what I mean? So anyway, so he gutsed it out. And then Victoria. Now, this was interesting. So Victoria were chasing 120 and got their 2 down. Harris 56 not out. But the real interest was on the Corey hotline. Corey Rocacholi, here are some words that rhyme with Corey, got Chandra Singh and Kellaway, both bowled, first 2 balls of his innings. He'd also picked up Siddle with his final delivery of the first innings, which meant that he got himself a little hat trick. Don't come along too often. Hat-trick. So a split innings hat trick for Corey Rocacholi. So that will, that just helps, I suppose, in that Corey versus Murphy chat. I hope they bring them both, because I would like to interview Corey Rocacholi. Although in saying that, if he's with the Australian squad, there's no way in the world we'll get to interview him. But at some point, I want to get Rocacholi on, because he was he did an interview on a podcast earlier in the year, like a video podcast on, I don't remember what it's called anymore, but the level of detail that bloke goes into about off spin, I was captivated. So I want to talk to him some more about finger spin. New South Wales. So that's significant for Victoria though. First time they've beaten WA for a while.
Yeah,
and they go to the top.
Needed to. There is
by
that
0.1. So Victoria are 20.1 and WA are 20, which is a bit like last year with it all compressed up the top there. New Zealand, very satisfying result. They won by New South Wales even. Very satisfying. They won by an innings and 1 run over South Australia at Adelaide Oval. Their first win of the season. South Australia were rolled by Jack Bird in the first innings for 110, but Bird took 7 for 46. He's got the 5th most wickets now in Shield history, heading towards 400. He's one of these any other era guys, right? We were having a discussion on the podcast about this probably when you weren't here recently. I think it was maybe with Norcross, about there's this generation of Australian quicks, if not for the big 3, would have played heaps and heaps of international cricket. And Bird's right at the front of that list. So
can't bat though.
Can't bat. Yeah,
never liked to have him in the side. You want to have an 11 who can hold the stick.
So, after his 7th, New South Wales got 394, another big first innings lead. Maddo, 67. Curtis Patterson, 71 more. Again, this is a really nice story. 90 a couple of weeks ago. He did the media rounds then and explained how low he got when dropped from the New South Wales team, having been captain. But that's 2 50s in 3 weeks. I think it was back-to-back 50s, actually, in the first of those games. So, he's well and truly back in that New South Wales middle order. Great to see. Ollie Davies made 56, having had a run with Australia A. So, again, one of those guys for the future. South Australia made 283, 1 short of making New South Wales bat a second time. Jake Lehman, an even century. Jack Bird, 4 more to make it 11 for the match. And a collapse at the very end, which meant they got the didn't have to put the pads on a second time. So New South Wales are in 4th spot. And then there was a draw.
Curtis Patterson, there's still. I kind of want him to stage an absurd comeback just so that he can come and bring the 144 down. Just bring that Test cricket average down so that he's not just forever a curiosity on the stats lists. And even if he only gets to play a few more here and there, filling in the gaps somewhere or other. But he's a long way off that at the moment. Yeah,
I liked it better when it was the Andy Gantome record. Like that felt better. It felt more fitting that Gantome would have it forever. But Patterson does at the moment. A draw at the Jabba between Tassie and Queensland. Tassie went big. It was a rain-affected game. 461. Doran 100. Jake Weatherald 186. Bo Webster 42. But every single innings of every single match, Webster's doing something. Then Queensland 291. Renshaw, good on him. 121. He put a post on social media, something to the effect of, I knew the magic was somewhere. And again, I just feel for these guys who, had they had the magic at the right moment, they're probably playing on Friday. But he's got time on his side, Matt Renshaw. Meredith and the final words, Lawrence Neil-Smith picked up 3 wickets apiece. Follow on enforced, and they got 225 for 5 the second time. Queensland with McDermott getting 59 not out. Meredith 3 more wickets. So they're fitting in 2 more rounds before the Big Bash break, and I kind of rate that. So there'll be 6 of the 10 rounds played before Christmas. That's the pink ball round next. That's in a couple of weeks, where maybe a week or so from now, where South Australia host WA, New South Wales host Tasmania, and Queensland hosts Victoria in day-night fixtures. But then they play 1 more game, and then they have their Big Bash hiatus and come back for a rapid month in February and March.
Can I just float one thing out there? Jake Weatherald, Nobody ever talks about Jake Weatherald, and he's a solid player. He's not a blow the doors down kind of player. He must be a mid-30s averaging kind of player, but he's opened the batting a lot. He's played a lot of domestic cricket, and he's combative. He's up for it. He's played some aggressive white ball stuff. He's adapted the tempo at times in first-class cricket, makes a big 100 here. Just interested that he never, ever, ever comes up as a suggestion, even though basically anybody who's ever been near opening, or apparently these days you don't actually need to do that, is in the conversation for a spot.
It's a fair point. I mean, he had a couple of good Shield finals too, which it's a bit of an old-fashioned idea, but Shield final used to weight you, just give you extra credence, and that was right at the start of his career, I suppose, when he was with South Australia. But still, overall numbers here, 10 hundreds in 65 Shield games. And also...
That's decent going. I mean, in the modern era, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and it's the point that I was making last week. And Sam Perry wrote a great piece on this out of their Kawaja interview on The Great Cricketer about just how the game's changed with how hard it is to bat in domestic cricket. Kawaja went on the podcast there and explained how. It's not just like it's harder. He went, no, here's why it's harder. He talked about the pitches, talked about the preparation, how it was different when he started, talked about the ball, the extra lacquer, the reinforced seam that they got before the 21-22 Ashes series in Australia. And that has made opening and batting in the top order in Shield cricket dramatically harder in the last few seasons, which is not a bad thing. But it does, over time, affect the bulk numbers, and Weatherald is part of that. So, averaging 35 sounds modest, sounds middle of the road. I heard someone criticising Marcus Harris the other day around that line. It's like, he doesn't average in the 50s. I'm like, but in the absence of anyone else doing
does.
it doesn't happen. Bancroft having 2 seasons where he did was the outlier, which is why he should have been and was for a time front of the queue until they decided to do the Steve Smith Malachi at the start of this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, unless you're playing against certain opponents in the Ranji Trophy, first-class cricketers don't put up those numbers.
Yeah.
And they rarely did. The whole it's that thing of getting completely confused by outliers, which we've talked about on the show before. It's just people who followed that one era of Australian Test cricket where a bunch of players averaged in the 50s for most of their careers and some of them finished there. Just conditioned people to think that a good Test player averaged in their 50s. They don't. There are 42 of them maybe ever historically, which includes a couple of outliers there who played just over the qualifying number of tests and so on. It just doesn't happen mostly.
But it works the other way.
Too difficult.
But it works the other way, right? I think Jack Bird averages in the teens in Shield cricket. Joel Paris averages 20. I don't know what. There's a whole bunch of bowlers with much lower averages, but they don't get. And that's probably the equivalent, right? So bowling conditions are better in the way that batting conditions were better in the 90s and the early 2000s and mid 2000s. So, but in the same way that we know the names, those fabulous domestic cricketers couldn't get a start. The same applies for the outstanding quicks in Australia. Who have struggled because the incumbents in the Test side are so fucking good. The big three, in the same way that the Aussie batting lineup in that era was so good. There was no way in. So, it's just a different it's the other side of the same coin, just the way conditions have changed it over the last 15 years or so. Geoff, staying in Australia, our last major topic of the day really is that the exhibition game that's been announced for the Afghanistan women ahead of one of the Women's Ashes games. I know this is something that Mel Jones pushed hard for, a number of other people as well, through the middle of this year, and it's now coming to fruition, which is a terrific thing. Geoff, can you give us the detail on this?
Yeah, this is positive. There's been a lot of lobbying about it. I haven't spoken to MJ, so I don't know exactly what the involvement was, but it must have been significant given the involvement of an organisation called Cricket Without Borders. They're the team that's going to put up a team for the Afghan women's 11 to play against in Melbourne. And Mel has been involved with that organisation for a long time. There's quite a lot of cricket people who are involved with that. Sarah Elliott, who made a Test 100 for Australia, Bryce McGain. have been involved with Cricket Without Borders for a while. It's kind of a touring, there's some crossover with the Crusaders. So it's like a touring and development side. They take teams away on tours, mostly to Pacific countries and Southeast Asian countries, that sort of thing. So they will play a 20-over game against an Afghan women's 11, and it's going to be on the morning of the start of the day-night test, the Women's Ashes test, which is great. So there's been some federal government involvement with this, I think basically just at approvals level, saying that let's push ahead and do this. It'll happen on the morning of that test match. It's interesting kind of framing the way this is all coming together. So remember, put this in the context in Afghanistan terms, that August was when there was the announcement that women would be banned from speaking in public in Afghanistan. That the idea that a woman's voice was considered an intimate body part and thus had to be concealed. In September, there was a ban on women praying aloud, even if only in the company of other women. So other women were not allowed to hear them recite verses from the Quran. And I think the read on that is that basically this is a method against women organising privately. And having any kind of resistance privately, because women could sometimes gather under the pretext that they were having religious meetings, they were having a prayer meeting. And so if you ban them from doing that, then you take away that excuse to gather in private where some level of resistance was happening, or where clandestine schools for girls were being organised, or lessons for girls were being run in spaces where there would only be women in those spaces. So, it's just such a pernicious and vicious system that just bit by bit keeps stripping away even the most basic access for living any sort of life, and isolating women in their homes with the men in their family and nobody else at any time. So that's the context in which all this is taking place. And so, and CA are still sort of playing the politics a bit. So obviously they're supporting this happening, but the framing of it is as Australian cricket, quote unquote, supporting this rather than Cricket Australia supporting this, which is interesting. Nick Hockley's quoted in the release saying, "Many people across cricket and the community have come together to provide support, and this match will be a celebration of that work." So CA are deliberately not putting themselves at the forefront of saying we're organising this. They're saying cricket is organising this, and we're a conduit. We're helping facilitate it. Obviously, it is backed by them, but they're keeping their distance when it comes to the language. So they're backing it because it will be at the Junction Oval. It will be on the morning because the women's day-night test will start in the afternoon, which is quite clever in a way. So they'll start it in the morning. Yep. They'll have that game done before the test starts, which means that hopefully people can come down and support it, and then just hop on the tram up to the MCG or walk up through the Botanic Gardens. It'd probably be a 45 or minute or an hour's walk up through the Botanic Gardens on what's hopefully a nice day to the MCG, and we can get some people to go to both, because they must be hoping for 40, maybe get 40 or 50,000 at the MCG would be amazing if that worked for day one. But if you could get 1,000 of those people to come down to the Afghan game beforehand and show support there, that would be even better.
Look, I hope you're right. I think that, and first of all, agree with everything you said then. That's a great initiative, and hopefully people take advantage of being able to do, as you say, one to the next. It's not ideal that it's starting on the same day as the first test with Australia and Sri Lanka, if I read the dates correctly.
Yep. And the timing will be almost exactly the same.
Exactly
it'll
the
be
same.
Sri Lanka in the afternoon.
And that's not that's not a men-women thing. It's when things clash. It just means the audience is naturally diluted. I mean, the MCG can be forgiving to an extent because you can close the top deck, and I'm sure they will. But it's forgiving when there's like 20,000 people in there. It's not forgiving when there's 10,000 people in there, is my experience. So they're going to have to work really hard on the marketing side of things. Then that's fine. That's the task of the administrators.
Yeah. I think the Sri Lanka test starts the day before. I think it'll be day 2 of the Sri Lanka test.
Okay. But either way, I just make that point. It's another challenge.
Infuriating. And for, I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing there, where I should be, because I've tried to be at every Australian test match that I can be for the last nearly 15 years. To have 2 overlapping in different countries is frustrating.
It is. Geoff, I can hear the PA being tested here, which is usually a pretty good sign for us to finish our episode. I've got one more point of business, but I'm going to defer that to the Storytime episode because it feels more Storytime related anyway. We have got, again, live shows coming thick and fast. Support them however you can. Get along. Share a social media post or two. We've never been particularly good at that. So if you can help us push along the socials, that would be appreciated. If you want to
call some friends you haven't seen in a while and say, hey, let's have a night out. You go down, you watch a show, it finishes at a civilized hour, and then generally we stay at the bar that we're at until it becomes an uncivilized hour. However you prepare, however you would like to divide up your night, those options are available to you.
I should say I won't be doing that at Perth, given I'll be back at Perth Stadium at like 7:30 the next morning. However, we will be
now.
No. This will be a night where I show profound.
The road to hell is
paved. You can stay out for this one. I'm going to do the right thing. This was the trade off for doing shows the night before. You might remember. But yes, all I can say is I'm looking out across this what has turned into a beautiful Perth day. Not a cloud in the sky. There were this morning. The pitch is being rolled at the moment. It looks an absolute treat. So really genuinely excited about what we have coming up over the next couple of months in terms of the cricket, but also the podcast. So thank you to everyone who supports us on Patreon week in, week out across the year. Hopefully what we provide you in the next 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it is absolutely worth your investment in us. And similarly to Maurice Blackburn Lawyers, CBUS Super, for having our backs this summer from a commercial perspective. Great to have them with us. And if you want to be part of what's going on in New Zealand next week, please let me know. info@finalwordcricket.com. This has been The Final Word. Geoff, I'll catch you tomorrow.
See ya.